And I think nearly every decision within reason that you make about your website really needs to respond to the needs of your users, because they're the ones who are, essentially you building the site for. And I think that it's such a simple rule, but at the same time, I think it's one that most of us forget. We instead tend to sit down and plan our websites in terms of these are the 10 things we need to convey. And I think one of the best exercises to get going on this is to think about our target audiences. And I'm talking here about specifically the people you want to reach with your website. So think about the people who typically engage with your organization, your donors, your volunteers, your board of directors, charities that are looking for information about grants, members of your local community, the media, and define clearly why they would come to your website. It's even a helpful exercise to create different profiles for these people, and really, we name at CanadaHelps. I don't know if it's useful for everybody, but we kind of name our different groups of people and we define them. So we have a group of people that are, women in their 40s who are professional and, have families and are busy, and we kind of, when we make changes to our website, we think of these different people in a very specific way and how they're going to engage with some of the tools on CanadaHelps. So if you're really thinking about how to solve some problems on your website, I think this is a good exercise to go through. And there's a big so there's a whole field of study called website usability that looks at how to make websites, take websites that are not very useful and make them more useful for users. So this is not a field that looks at good, very aesthetically pleasing design or, content. This really is a field of study that looks at how to get the most usefulness out of a website. And experts in this field talk about the main function of a website being to solve problems. And that when your audience goes to your website, your website really needs to solve one of the problems that they have. And they really break it down into 3 problems. People come to your website because they want or need information. And what we know about people who visit charities' websites in general is that they're looking for what your organization does, how you do it. So, with community foundations, what grants or what programs you run, where the money goes. This is obviously a big concern in the public lately, especially with some of the media coverage we've all seen lately. So people are pretty eager to know where the money goes, and I think it's always a good practice to put that very clearly on your website, and people want contact information. So if you can solve those problems, you're ahead of a lot of other websites. People also want to complete a transaction, so they want to donate or sign up for your newsletter or whatever other kinds of calls to action you might have on your site. And you wouldn't believe how many people make it very hard, or how many websites make it very hard for people to complete these calls to action. And they want to be part of a community. And so we're not going to be dealing with social media today. We're going to be dealing specifically with websites. But I think there are things you can do on your website to make people feel a part of the community, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. But one of them, for example, is the use of graphics that draw people into your website. So I think if you do nothing else with your website kind of in this giving season, but take a critical eye to it and make sure that your website responds to the actual needs of a particular set of audiences, then I think you'll be well ahead most people, most organizations, and your website will respond to more needs. And in I just wanted to throw in a quick example of a website, and when I talk about usability and how useful websites are, I really wanted to drive this point home here. I'm not talking about design, because here we have a perfectly lovely website. It looks really nice, but from a usability perspective, it's terrible. So when you get to the website and at first glance it looks lovely, but then you think, how am I supposed to click on anything or engage in this website? And you would think there's this navigate button over here under the image, and you would think that maybe if you scrolled over that a menu would pop down, and it's not true. It's these eggs that are the menu for the website. And so again, you have to figure this out. I guarantee you most people probably lose patience when they get to the site. They don't have any idea that you have to scroll over these weird eggs, and that's where your navigation pops out. And it's really not a user-centered design. It's something that a graphic design company wanted to do to make something cool and different. But again, if it's not responding to the needs of your audience, it's pretty useless. So again, some pretty simple things that we can do to put our audience first. And the first thing that we can do is to get organized. So once you have thought through who your audience is and why they're visiting your site, you can now think through how the information on your site should be organized for maximum ease of use for these people. So your website should, of course, not be a random assortment of information, and all of the documents and information that you ever produce, but a well-curated selection of key material for your key audiences, so well-curated and well-organized. You want to plan a clear, easy-to-understand menu with your audience in mind. The last thing, lost, confused, unclear, all these things, that's the last thing you want your audience to feel when they get to your website. And so much about a good website experience is about feeling comfortable and safe. And that just simply means, I know where I am and I know where I'm going on this website. Anytime you feel lost or confused or unsure about your next choice, that's when the frustration levels rise, and that's when people will tend to click away from your site. The biggest source of frustration on any website is not being able to find the information they need. So your menu structure needs to respond to the actual needs of visitors, not you. And I think this is where we really fall down into that trap, is of not putting our audience first. We organize our information around, either departments that we have internally or the way we kind of tend to use the information at our organizations, instead of how we think users will come to the site. So I'm going to just go through a very quick exercise around menu choices, because one of the most important tools you have, of course, on your website for telling people where they are and what choice to make next, and where they're heading on your site are the menus. Is the menu rather that you have on your website. But so many people have strange and confusing menu choices, and people get lost as to where they are. So don't use ambiguous headings, and give your visitor a clear set of choices. So the first one that I've got here is culinary delights. And I've seen this on a few websites where they try to name their menus something really ambiguous like this, and they think it's going to be very flowery and fun, but really what it does is it confuses people. A better option would be, cuisine options. That gets you there. That gets you a little bit closer to where you want to be in terms of understanding what they've got. Food menu, even better, but then of course menu is still the best option. There's no confusion around that. I know when I click that option what I'm going to get. So let's talk now about some options that you might actually have on your website. I know none of us have these, but some of you might have jobs or employment opportunities. So career services is more confusing. And then we've got employment opportunities, job openings. Well, jobs, of course, is the better and best option if you've got jobs on your website. People don't think that employment opportunity sounds better. They actually don't spend the time reading it. So it's better to put the jobs option. Another one that most of us have, and I think most of us get this right nowadays, organization information. Some people put more information about us, but really the best name for this section is about us. How to volunteer with us. Volunteer opportunities is even better, but volunteer is the action that you want people to take and the button you want them to click. And this is, I did look at some of the websites of the people on the webinar today, and this is one that I saw was a little bit tricky in some cases. People have very long sentences around how to make a gift to your community. I think that could be read as quite, ambiguously from a lot of people's perspective. Even better would be how to make a donation, but the best option, of course, is just simply donate.